Jake Martinez wiped down the counter for the third time that hour. The clock on the wall showed 2:47 a.m., and the desert night pressed against the windows of the gas station like a living thing. He had worked the night shift for 2 years now, ever since the world changed and aliens became real. Most people called it first contact. Jake called it the day everything he knew turned upside down. The station sat alone on a stretch of Nevada highway, where tumbleweeds outnumbered cars. Jake liked it that way. Fewer people meant fewer questions about why a former combat medic was pumping gas in the middle of nowhere. The integration wars had left scars on everyone, but Jake carried his quietly, preferring the company of silence and stars. A soft beeping pulled his attention to the atmospheric sensor mounted near the door. The government had installed them at every business after contact, meant to detect unusual ships or dimensional rifts. In 2 years, Jake's had never made a sound. Now it blinked red and the beeping grew faster. Jake moved to the window and looked up at the night sky. At first he saw only stars scattered across the darkness like diamonds on black velvet. Then something moved, a shape darker than the night itself, trailing smoke and fire. The object grew larger, coming down fast, too fast. Jake's military training kicked in. He grabbed the emergency radio and started to call it in, then stopped. The ship, because it was definitely a ship, adjusted its descent at the last moment. Whoever piloted it knew what they were doing. Instead of crashing into the desert, it came down behind the station near the old maintenance shed. The impact shook the building. Coffee cups rattled on their hooks. The lights flickered once, twice, then held steady. Jake grabbed a flashlight and the first aid kit from under the counter. His hand hesitated over the old service pistol he kept in the drawer. He left it. If something wanted to kill him, a handgun wouldn't stop it. He stepped outside into the cool desert air. The ship sat crumpled behind his station, maybe 50 feet long, with a hull that looked like it had been through a war. Scorch marks blackened the metal. One wing hung at a wrong angle. Steam or smoke rose from vents along its side, hissing into the night. Jake approached slowly, flashlight raised. Something moved near the front of the ship. Something big. Jake's breath caught in his throat. A creature emerged from the shadows and his mind struggled to make sense of what he saw. It walked on 4 legs but stood almost 8 feet tall at the shoulder. Its body was covered in scales that shimmered even in the darkness, catching moonlight and reflecting it in colors Jake had no names for. Wings, tattered and torn, dragged behind it. A long neck curved upward, ending in a head that was both beautiful and terrifying. Horns swept back from its skull, and a crest of what looked like crystal ran down its spine, glowing faintly with internal light. A dragon. His mind supplied the word before logic could argue. He was looking at a dragon. The creature took 2 more steps and collapsed near the gas pumps. Its breathing came in ragged gasps. One front leg wouldn't support weight properly. Deep gouges marked its side, and those wounds glowed with an unnatural purple light that made Jake's stomach turn. He had seen energy weapon burns during the integration wars. These looked worse. The dragon's head turned toward him, eyes like molten gold fixed on his face. The creature made a sound, something between a growl and a whimper. Then it tried to speak. The words came out broken, filtered through a damaged translator device attached to the dragon's neck. "Help! Please, help!" The voice was female, desperate, barely understandable through static and garbled sounds. Every instinct told Jake to run, to call the authorities, to let someone else handle this. Instead, he thought about the times he had been the one lying bleeding, hoping someone would help. He thought about the people he couldn't save during the wars. He took a step forward. "Easy," Jake said softly, raising his free hand. "I'm not going to hurt you." The dragon watched him approach. When Jake got within 10 feet, she made a warning sound, low and rumbling. But she didn't attack. She didn't have the strength. Jake could see that now. Whatever had hurt her had almost killed her. He knelt down slowly, setting the first aid kit beside him. "I'm a medic." Was a medic. "I can help, maybe. But you need to trust me." The dragon stared at him for a long moment. Then, slowly, she lowered her head to the ground. Permission granted, Jake moved closer. The dragon's scales felt warm under his hand like sun-heated stone. He examined the wounds carefully. The purple glow worried him. Some kind of energy weapon, definitely, but what it did to alien biology, he had no idea. He grabbed water bottles from his station and began cleaning the injuries as best he could. While he worked, the dragon made soft sounds, words in a language he couldn't understand. Her translator sparked and died completely. Jake kept talking anyway, his voice calm and steady. The same tone he had used with injured soldiers years ago. "You're going to be okay. We'll figure this out. Just stay with me." The dragon lifted her head slightly and looked past Jake toward her ship. She made an urgent sound, gesturing with her snout. Jake followed her gaze. The ship's cargo hold stood open, and through the gap he saw movement. Jake walked to the ship carefully, flashlight raised. Inside the hold he found 3 small creatures huddled together. Baby dragons, each no bigger than a large dog. They looked up at him with frightened eyes, their scales dull, their bodies thin. One was shaking. Another could barely lift its head. "Oh no," Jake whispered. These weren't just hurt. They were dying. He turned back to the adult dragon. She watched him with desperate eyes. Now he understood. She wasn't just running. She was protecting them. Whatever she had fled from, whatever had hurt her, these babies were why she kept going. These babies were why she had risked landing on a primitive planet and asking a human for help. Jake made a decision in that moment, the kind of decision that changes everything. He walked back to the dragon and knelt in front of her. "I don't know what you're running from," he said, even though she couldn't understand. "I don't know what happened to you, but I know what it looks like when someone needs help. And I know what it looks like when someone is protecting kids." He pointed at her, then at the babies, then at himself. Then he pointed at his station. The dragon understood. She made a sound that might have been gratitude or relief. Using what strength she had left, she began to drag herself toward the garage bay. Jake opened the large bay door and helped guide her inside. The ship would have to stay where it was, but he could hide the dragon and the babies. He could figure out the rest as he went. The night shift suddenly didn't seem so quiet anymore. In fact, Jake suspected his quiet life had just ended completely. As he helped the last baby dragon out of the ship and into the garage, Jake looked up at the stars. Somewhere up there, something was hunting this creature and her charges. Something bad enough to make a dragon fall from the sky and beg a human for help. Jake closed the garage door and locked it. Whatever came next, he would deal with it. He had been running from purpose for 2 years. Maybe purpose had finally found him instead. Jake flipped the sign on the station door to closed and locked it. If anyone came asking, he would say the pumps malfunctioned. Not a complete lie. His whole night had definitely malfunctioned in the most spectacular way possible. In the garage bay, the dragon lay on her side, breathing heavily. The 3 baby dragons huddled against her, drawing warmth and comfort. Jake had given them water, which they drank desperately. Now he needed to figure out what else they needed: food, medicine, fuel for the ship. The list felt impossible. He pulled his old tablet from his locker and returned to the dragon. She watched him approach, those golden eyes tracking his every movement. Jake sat down cross-legged a few feet away, close enough to communicate but far enough to not seem threatening. He opened the tablet's translation app, something the government issued after first contact. It supposedly worked with most known alien languages. Jake held up the tablet and spoke clearly. "My name is Jake. Can you understand this?" The dragon tilted her head. She opened her mouth and spoke. The sounds that came out were nothing like human speech, more like musical notes mixed with rumbling thunder. The tablet screen flickered, working hard to process. Finally, text appeared. "Karesh. My name, Karesh. Karesh," Jake repeated, trying to get the pronunciation right. The dragon's eyes brightened slightly. He pointed to the babies. "Are they yours?" Karesh made a negative sound that needed no translation. She looked at the babies with such sadness that Jake felt it in his chest. The tablet processed her next words slowly. "Not mine. Last ones, all dead. I saved these. I run." Jake's jaw tightened. He had seen too many wars, too much death. He knew what genocide looked like. "Who killed them?" Karesh struggled to find words. She gestured with one claw toward the sky, then made a complex series of sounds. The tablet showed several words, then settled on one. "Government. My government." The weight of those words settled over the garage like a heavy blanket. Jake nodded slowly. He understood government betrayal better than most. "You found out something they wanted hidden." Karesh's head bobbed, a surprisingly human gesture. She moved carefully, wincing with pain, and touched a panel on her collar. A hologram flickered to life, shaky and dim but visible. Jake watched as images played out. He saw facilities, laboratories, beings held in cages. He saw experiments. Horrible things done to creatures that looked sentient and afraid. He saw the babies, or others like them, being created in tubes. He saw them being tested, forced to use abilities Jake didn't understand. When they refused to harm others, when they showed mercy, they were terminated. All of them. Hundreds. The hologram showed Koresh herself wearing what looked like official gear. She had been there in some official capacity. She had seen these things and decided to act. The images showed her breaking into the facility, grabbing the last 3 babies, fleeing in a stolen ship. They showed other ships pursuing her, firing weapons, damaging her vessel. The hologram died. Koresh looked at Jake with exhausted eyes. They experiment, Jake said quietly. They created a new species. The babies can do something special, can't they? Something they wanted to use as a weapon. Koresh nodded. She touched one of the sleeping babies gently. The tablet struggled with her next words, but the meaning came through. They feel others, feel hurt, feel pain. Cannot hurt, cannot kill. Wrong weapon, kill all. I take last ones. Jake felt anger rising in his chest, the old familiar burn he thought he had left behind. Empaths. They created empaths and expected them to be weapons. When they refused, your government destroyed them all. He looked at the 3 small creatures sleeping against their protector, created to be weapons, condemned to death for having mercy. It was worse than anything he had seen in human wars. At least humans usually had the decency to feel shame about their atrocities. Jake stood and began examining the dragon's wounds more carefully. The purple glow had faded slightly, which he hoped was good. He cleaned them again with bottled water and applied antibiotic ointment from his kit. Would human medicine work on alien biology? He had no idea, but doing nothing felt worse. Your ship, Jake said. It needs fuel? Koresh made an affirmative sound. Jake walked outside to examine the vessel more closely. His years in the military had taught him the basics of various propulsion systems. Humanity had learned fast after first contact, adapting alien technology with surprising speed. That adaptability was one reason other species both respected and feared humans. He found the fuel port and used his tablet to scan it. The ship ran on a hydrogen-helium mixture, pressurized and supercooled. Jake actually laughed. Of all the exotic fuels it could have needed, this was something he could work with. The station had hydrogen pumps for the new transport trucks. Helium was trickier, but he knew where to get it. Jake returned to Koresh. I can fuel your ship. It'll take time, but I can do it. Hope flickered in those golden eyes. Then fear replaced it. Koresh made urgent sounds, gesturing at the sky. The tablet translated. They come. They follow. They find. How long? Koresh didn't know. Maybe hours, maybe less. Jake's mind raced. The dragon needed medical care. The babies needed food and safety. The ship needed fuel and repairs. And enemies were coming. Enemies who had already shown they would kill to keep their secrets. Jake pulled out his phone and stared at it. He had avoided calling her for months, avoiding that connection to his old life. Now he had no choice. He dialed. Sarah Chen answered on the 3rd ring, her voice thick with sleep. Jake, it's 3 a.m. Someone better be dying. Not yet, Jake said. But I need your help. How fast can you get to the station? Why, what's wrong? Jake looked at Koresh and the babies. He thought about all the times during the integration wars when they had faced impossible choices. Sarah had always been there, his partner, his friend, the one person he trusted completely. I've got a dragon in my garage, Jake said. A real one. She's hurt. She's got 3 babies with her, and something very bad is chasing them. I need you, Sarah, please. Silence on the other end. Then, I'm 40 minutes out. I'll bring supplies. Jake, if this is what I think it is, we're going to be in serious trouble. I know, Jake said. I'm already in it. Question is whether you're willing to jump in with me. Another pause. You saved my life twice in the wars. I'm on my way. Don't do anything stupid until I get there. Jake hung up and returned to sit near Koresh. She watched him with intelligent eyes. I called a friend, Jake explained. She's smart. She can help. We're going to figure this out. Koresh made a sound that the tablet translated as gratitude. She reached out slowly with one claw and touched Jake's hand. The gesture was gentle, careful. A thank you that needed no words. Jake sat with her in the quiet garage, listening to the babies breathe, watching the night through the small windows. Somewhere above, ships were coming. Somewhere in his past, he had promised himself no more wars, no more fights. But sitting here with this desperate mother and her doomed charges, Jake realized some promises were meant to be broken. He had been a soldier once, then a medic, then nothing at all. Maybe it was time to be something again. Maybe it was time to stand and fight, not because orders demanded it, but because it was right. The night pressed on. Jake checked his watch. 35 minutes until Sarah arrived. He stood and began gathering everything he thought they might need. Food, water, medical supplies, tools. Whatever came next, they would face it together. A weary dragon had pleaded for help at his pump, and Jake Martinez had decided that help was exactly what she would get, even if it cost him everything. Sarah Chen's truck pulled into the station 42 minutes later, spraying gravel. She jumped out carrying 2 large duffel bags and a case that Jake recognized as her portable analysis equipment. Her black hair was pulled back in a messy bun, and she wore the same determined expression she had worn during firefights in the integration wars. "Garage?" she asked without preamble. Jake nodded and led her inside. Sarah stopped dead when she saw Karish and the babies. Her eyes went wide and she set down her equipment carefully. "Holy hell, Jake. When you said dragon, I thought you were being metaphorical." "I wish," Jake said. "Sarah Chen, meet Karish." "Karish, this is Sarah. She's good people." Karish lifted her head weakly. Sarah approached slowly, hands visible, movements careful. She had always been good with first contact situations, calm where others panicked. "I'm a xenobiologist," Sarah said, though Karish probably couldn't understand. "I study alien life. Can I examine you?" Jake used the tablet to translate. Karish consented with a slight nod. Sarah spent the next 20 minutes doing a thorough examination, using handheld scanners and taking readings. Jake watched her work, remembering all the times they had patched each other up in worse conditions. Finally, Sarah sat back on her heels. "The wounds are severe but not immediately fatal. The energy burns damaged her cellular structure at a molecular level. She needs specialized care I can't provide here. And Jake, she's exhausted, physically and mentally. I don't know how she kept flying." "The babies," Jake said simply. Sarah moved to examine the 3 small dragons. They woke as she approached, making small, frightened sounds. Jake knelt beside them and spoke softly. "It's okay. She's a friend. She wants to help." Something remarkable happened then. The smallest baby, the one that had been shaking earlier, reached out with its mind. Jake felt it like a gentle touch inside his head, not invasive, but questioning. The baby was reading his emotions, his intentions. Finding no threat, only concern and warmth, the baby relaxed. The others followed its lead. "They're empaths," Sarah breathed. "Real functioning empaths. Jake, do you understand how rare this is? Most species develop limited empathy. But true empathic abilities like this, it's nearly impossible." "They were created that way," Jake said. He showed Sarah the hologram recordings Karish had shared. He watched his friend's face grow harder with each image, saw the same anger he felt reflected in her eyes. When the hologram ended, Sarah was quiet for a long moment. They created them to be weapons, living weapons who could sense and exploit emotional vulnerabilities. But empaths by nature can't harm others. They feel the pain they cause. It's why this ability is so rare. Evolution doesn't favor it in violent species. So when the babies refused to hurt people, they were declared defective, Jake said, and terminated. "All except these 3. Sarah looked at Karish with new respect. "You broke ranks. You stole government property and fled. They'll never stop hunting you," Jake translated. Karish responded with sounds that the tablet rendered as simple words. "Not property, babies, living, deserve life." "Damn right they do," Sarah said fiercely. She stood and paced the garage, thinking. "Okay, first problem, immediate medical care. I can stabilize Karish here, but she needs real treatment. Second problem, the babies need food. I'm guessing they're starving. Third problem, that ship needs fuel and repairs. Fourth problem, and this is the big one, ships are coming to kill everyone in this garage and destroy the evidence." "I can solve the fuel problem," Jake said. "I've already figured out the mixture. Repairs will be harder, but I can patch the hull enough to fly. Maybe. I can synthesize nutrients for the babies," Sarah added. "My lab has equipment for creating alien food compounds. It's only 20 minutes from here. But Jake, if we do this, if we help her, we're making enemies of a galactic government. That's not a small thing." Jake looked at Karish and the babies. He thought about all the things he had seen during the integration wars, all the terrible decisions made by people in power, all the innocent lives crushed under the weight of political necessity. He thought about coming home to find his own family dead, casualties of a conflict they never asked for. "I'm done watching innocent people die because governments decide they're inconvenient," Jake said. "I'm done with that. If they want to come after me, let them come." Sarah smiled, a fierce expression. "There's the Jake I remember. Okay, here's what we're going to do. My research facility has an old mining complex attached to it, abandoned for years. It's underground, shielded off most sensors. We move Karesh and her ship there, buy ourselves time to figure out a real plan." "How do we move a 50-foot spaceship?" Jake asked. "I have access to heavy lifters for moving equipment. We can repurpose them. It'll take a few hours, but we can do it." Jake nodded. Then another thought struck him. "Sarah, what if we can't hide forever? What if the only way to save them is to make the evidence public? Make it impossible to suppress?" Sarah's eyes widened. "You want to leak this? To the media? To the Galactic Council?" "Jake, that's declaring war on an entire government." "They already declared war," Jake said. "On these babies, on Karesh, on anyone who got in their way. I'm just saying we should fight back." Karesh made an urgent sound. The tablet translated her words. "Evidence I have. All files. All proof. Show Galaxy. They cannot hide." "It could work," Sarah said slowly. "Earth's media is independent. The Galactic Council has opposition factions who would love dirt on the current administration. If we release everything simultaneously, to multiple sources, it becomes too big to contain." "But first we keep them alive," Jake said. "Everything else is pointless if they die." Sarah nodded. "Right, priorities. I'll call my team, the ones I trust. We get Karesh and the babies to the mining facility. We get the ship operational. Then we figure out how to start a revolution." The next few hours blurred together in organized chaos. Sarah's team arrived with equipment and questions, but they trusted her judgment. Jake worked on synthesizing fuel while Sarah stabilized Karesh's condition and fed the babies. The little dragons ate desperately, making happy sounds that broke Jake's heart. One of Sarah's engineers examined the ship and reported it could fly, barely, if they patched 3 critical systems. Jake helped with repairs, his hands remembering skills from his military days. Karesh watched everything, too weak to help but clearly grateful. As dawn approached, they prepared to move. The heavy lifters engaged, carefully lifting the damaged ship. Sarah had planned the route carefully, using back roads and terrain to avoid satellites. They would have maybe 6 hours before anyone noticed. Jake rode in the truck with Karesh and the babies. The little dragons had decided he was safe and cuddled against him, their scales warm and smooth. The smallest one, the empath who had first trusted him, kept touching his mind gently. Jake sent back feelings of safety, protection, determination. The baby made a content sound and fell asleep. Karesh watched this with wonder. She spoke and the tablet translated. "They trust you, rare, they fear most. But you, they trust." "I won't let anything happen to them," Jake promised. "I know what it's like to lose family. I won't let you lose yours." They reached the mining facility as the sun rose over the desert. The entrance was hidden, disguised as a collapsed tunnel. Sarah's team had reactivated the power and air systems. Inside, the massive underground chamber could easily hide the ship and provide living space. They settled Karesh in a section with soft materials and warmth. The babies explored cautiously, staying close to her. Sarah set up medical monitors and declared Karesh stable for now. The ship sat in the main chamber, wounded but hidden. Jake stood at the entrance, watching the sunrise paint the desert in gold and red. Sarah joined him, 2 cups of coffee in her hands. She gave him one. "No going back now," she said. "Never wanted to go back," Jake replied. "Only forward. What do you think they'll do when they find out humans helped her?" Jake sipped his coffee. "Probably threaten us. Try to intimidate Earth's government. Maybe declare us enemies. And we're okay with that?" Jake thought about the baby dragon sleeping with its mind pressed against his, trusting him completely. He thought about Karesh, who had sacrificed everything to save children that weren't even her own. He thought about all the governments throughout history that committed atrocities and expected silence. "Yeah," Jake said. "We're okay with that. Some things are worth fighting for. Some people are worth protecting. Even if they're not people by the traditional definition." Sarah clinked her coffee cup against his. "Then let's get to work. We've got evidence to leak and a galaxy to shock. Think we can pull it off?" "Jake, we survived the integration wars. We've faced impossible odds before. This time we're not alone." We've got a very angry dragon and 3 empathic babies on our side. Plus, you know what humanity's good at? What? Fighting dirty, Sarah said with a grin. And protecting those who can't protect themselves. Those galactic enforcers have no idea what they're up against. Jake smiled. For the first time in years, he felt purpose burning in his chest again. A dragon had pleaded for help at his gas pump, and he had answered. Now the real work began. The evidence went live at exactly noon, Earth Standard Time. Sarah had coordinated with contacts across 20 different media outlets, 3 opposition members of the Galactic Council, and several human rights organizations. The files hit every major network simultaneously, too widespread to contain. Jake watched the news feeds on multiple screens in the mining facility's control room. The story exploded. Video of the experiments, the murdered babies, the cover-up. Karish's testimony translated into 40 languages. Documentation proving the Galactic Consortium's military wing had been creating bioweapons using sentient species. Within an hour, protests erupted on a dozen worlds. Within 2 hours, the Galactic Council called an emergency session. Within 3 hours, Earth's government was forced to respond to questions about harboring a fugitive. And within 4 hours, consortium ships entered Earth's orbit. Sarah's tablet lit up with urgent messages. They're making official inquiries through diplomatic channels. They want Koresh and the babies handed over immediately. They're calling her a criminal, calling the babies stolen property. Property, Jake said bitterly. He looked at the 3 small dragons playing in the corner under Karish's watchful eye. The smallest one, whom Jake had named Hope in his mind, noticed his attention and sent a wave of affection through their empathic connection. How do you call something property when it can love? The same way humans used to, Sarah said quietly. We're not so far removed from that darkness ourselves. Maybe that's why we recognize it. Jake's phone rang. The caller ID showed his old commanding officer from the Integration Wars, Colonel Marcus Wright, now a liaison between human military and galactic forces. Jake answered. Martinez, Wright's voice was tight. Tell me you're not involved in this mess. Can't do that, sir. A long sigh. I figured. Look, officially, I'm supposed to tell you to surrender the fugitive immediately. Unofficially, half the human military is cheering for you. What they did to those kids, those babies, it's unconscionable. But Jake, the pressure on our government is enormous. They might not have a choice. Everyone has a choice, Colonel. Enforcers are on the ground now. They've tracked the ship's signature to the general area. They're sweeping the desert. How long until they find you? Jake looked at the monitors showing the facility's external sensors. Depends on how good their equipment is. Could be hours, could be days. I'm not supposed to tell you this, Wright said, but they have authorization to use lethal force. They want everyone dead. No witnesses. Make it look like a battle gone wrong. Jake's blood ran cold. They'd start a war with Earth? They're betting Earth won't go to war over one human and an alien fugitive. They're probably right. Most governments wouldn't risk billions of lives for a handful of people. Then most governments are wrong, Jake said. Thanks for the warning, Colonel. Jake, listen to me. Get out of there. Take the dragon and run. I'll stall them as long as I can, but I'm not running, Jake interrupted. I'm done running. I ran from the wars, ran from my pain, ran from everything. Not anymore. If they want her, they go through me. Another sigh. You always were the most stubborn man I knew. All right. If you're making a stand, make it public. Keep transmitting. The galaxy is watching. They won't dare commit an atrocity on live feed. They already committed atrocities. What's one more? The difference is witnesses. Use that. And Jake, make us proud. The line went dead. Jake turned to Sarah. They're coming. Armed and authorized to kill. We need to broadcast everything. Every second. Multiple feeds. Sarah was already moving, setting up cameras and transmitters. Done. Every major network will have live access. I'm also uploading everything to distributed servers. Even if they destroy us, the data survives. Jake walked to where Koresh rested. She looked better, her scales regaining their luster, but still weak. The babies sensed his tension and huddled closer to their protector. Jake knelt beside them. They're coming, he said through the tablet. The ones who hurt you. But we're not giving up. We're going to fight. Karish's golden eyes met his. She made a sound that the tablet rendered as determination. Fight, protect babies. Die if needed. Let's try to avoid the dying part, Jake said. He stroked Hope's head gently. The baby dragon nuzzled his hand, trusting completely. That trust gave Jake strength. Sarah's equipment registered movement on the external sensors. 3 ships landing 2 miles out. Scanning sweeps heading our way. 20 minutes, maybe less. Jake ran through options. The mining facility was defensible, designed to withstand collapses and cave-ins. The entrance was narrow, a tactical advantage. His old military training mapped out defensive positions. They had some weapons, nothing heavy, but enough. Sarah's team numbered 8 people, all loyal, all willing to fight. But realistically, they couldn't win. Not against trained enforcers with superior weapons. Jake had always known this. From the moment he decided to help Koresh, he had known it would probably end badly. Some things were worth dying for. He helped Sarah's team set up defensive positions. They placed barriers, established firing lanes, prepared medical supplies for casualties. Everyone worked with quiet efficiency. No one suggested surrender. No one suggested running. They had all made their choice. Koresh tried to stand to help prepare defenses. Jake gently pushed her back down. You need to rest. Protect the babies. That's your job. Fighting is ours, 10 minutes. The external cameras showed armored figures approaching, moving in tactical formation. Professional soldiers doing their job. Jake wondered if they knew what they were really fighting for, if anyone had told them the truth about the babies. Sarah stood beside him at the entrance, rifle in hand. You know, when we survived the integration wars, I thought that was it. We'd never see combat again. Life's funny that way, Jake said. Brings you full circle. Any regrets? Jake thought about the last few days. Meeting Koresh. Earning the trust of the babies. Standing up for something right, something good. Finding purpose again. None. You? Not a single one. Sarah checked her weapon. If we're making a last stand, at least it's for something that matters. The enforcers reached the entrance. A voice called out in standard Galactic, translated through speakers. Surrender the fugitive and stolen property. You have 60 seconds to comply. Jake activated the transmitter, his voice broadcasting to millions of viewers across multiple worlds. The being you call a fugitive is named Koresh. She's a person, not a criminal. The babies you call property are children. Innocent children your government created and then tried to murder. We're not handing them over. If you want them, you'll have to kill us first. Silence. Then the voice again, colder now. You've chosen death. So be it. The attack began with energy weapons fire. Bolts of superheated plasma struck the entrance, blackening stone. Jake and Sarah's team returned fire. The narrow entrance worked in their favor, forcing the enforcers to funnel their attack. Bodies fell on both sides. Jake fought with desperate precision, every shot counting. Beside him, Sarah coordinated defensive fire while maintaining the broadcast. The galaxy watched humans fight to protect an alien and her charges. The galaxy watched enforcers try to murder witnesses to genocide. An explosion rocked the entrance. The enforcers were using heavier weapons now, trying to collapse the tunnel. Rock and dust filled the air. Jake heard screaming from his team. 2 people down, injured but alive. The enforcers pushed forward. Then something remarkable happened. Jake felt Hope's presence in his mind, stronger than before. The baby was afraid, but beneath the fear was determination. All 3 babies were reaching out with their empathic abilities, not to attack, but to communicate. They sent waves of emotion to the enforcers, showing them the truth of what had happened, making them feel the pain and fear of their murdered siblings. Several enforcers hesitated. Jake saw confusion on their faces, horror dawning. The babies were showing them what they had done, what their government had ordered. Some enforcers lowered their weapons, others pushed forward harder, trying to ignore what they felt. The battle intensified. Jake took a hit to his shoulder, the energy weapon burning through flesh. Pain exploded through his body. He stumbled but kept fighting. Sarah dragged him to cover, applying emergency bandages while returning fire. Stay down, she ordered. Can't, Jake gasped. They need me. An enforcer broke through their line, heading for the chamber where Koresh and the babies hid. Jake didn't think. He threw himself at the armored figure, tackling them despite his wounded shoulder. They crashed to the ground, grappling. The enforcer was stronger, better equipped. Jake fought with the desperation of a man protecting his family. The enforcer's helmet display showed his face. Young, maybe 25. Eyes wide with confusion and fear. The baby's empathic assault had shaken him. Jake could see it. They're children, Jake gasped. Just children. Don't do this, the enforcer hesitated. In that moment, Koresh appeared. Despite her wounds, despite her exhaustion, the dragon threw herself into battle. Her claws struck the enforcer, sending him flying. She stood over Jake, wings spread, making sounds that needed no translation. A mother protecting her young. More enforcers entered. Karish fought them with savage grace, her body moving despite injury. Jake struggled to his feet, firing his weapon with his offhand. Sarah and her team laid down covering fire. Blood and pain blurred together. Then lights appeared outside. Not in force, the Galactic Council chambers had never been so full. Representatives from 200 worlds packed the tiered seats, their attention fixed on the evidence being presented. Jake watched from the gallery, his shoulder still healing from the battle 3 weeks ago. Beside him sat Karish, her scales fully healed now, gleaming with health. The 3 babies dozed in a specially designed carrier, content and safe. Sarah sat on his other side, tablet in hand, monitoring dozens of feeds. "They can't ignore this," she whispered. "Every species is calling for accountability." On the main floor, the prosecutor for interspecies justice presented the final pieces of evidence. Video testimony from enforcers who had broken ranks, horrified by what they learned. Documents proving the consortium's military wing had conducted similar experiments on 17 different species. Financial records showing the cover-up. The lead administrator of the military wing stood in the accused circle, his face unreadable. He was a being from a species humanity had barely encountered, tall and angular with skin that shifted colors. He had shown no remorse. Jake had testified earlier, telling the story of that night at the gas station. He had kept it simple, factual. A wounded person asked for help, he gave it. The galaxy didn't need heroic speeches. They needed truth. The council's high judge, a being of pure energy contained in a crystalline matrix, spoke with a voice that resonated through the chamber. The evidence is overwhelming. The military wing of the Galactic Consortium stands accused of crimes against sentient life, genocide, illegal experimentation, attempted murder of witnesses. How does the council vote? The vote was nearly unanimous. Guilty on all counts. The military wing would be dissolved. Those responsible would face trial. Reparations would be made to affected species. It was justice, imperfect but real. After the verdict, Jake and Karish walked through the gardens outside the council building. The babies had woken and wanted to explore. They bounded ahead, playing with each other, their scales catching sunlight in rainbow patterns. Hope, the smallest, kept circling back to check on Jake, touching his mind with affection. "They offered me my old position back," Karish said through the translator, which Sarah had repaired and improved, with honors. "Recognition for exposing the corruption." "Congratulations," Jake said. "You deserve it." I declined. Jake stopped walking. "Why?" Karish watched the babies play. "I spent years serving a government I believed in. When I discovered what they truly were, everything changed. I cannot go back to that life. The babies need more than a guardian who is always working, always away. They need family, stability. What will you do?" Karish turned those golden eyes on him. "I have a proposal. One I hope you will consider carefully." Over the next hour, Karish explained her idea. A conservation program, focused on protecting endangered and created species across the galaxy. Not a military operation or a government project, but an independent organization dedicated to giving refuge to those who needed it. A place where beings like the babies could live without fear, where research could be conducted ethically, where different species could learn from each other. "And you want to base this on Earth?" Jake asked. "Specifically at your gas station," Karish said. "The place where compassion overcame fear. The place where a human chose to help despite all risk. That location has meaning now. Stories are being told about it across 100 worlds. The pump where the dragon asked for help, it has become a symbol." Jake thought about his quiet life, his night shifts, his isolation. That life was already gone, destroyed the moment he chose to help. He couldn't go back. But maybe he didn't want to. Maybe he had been waiting for something exactly like this. "I'd need help," Jake said. "I don't know anything about running a conservation program." "You know about protecting those who need protection," Karish replied. "You know about standing firm when others would run. You know about compassion. These are not skills taught in schools. These are qualities of character. Everything else can be learned." Sarah, who had been listening from a nearby bench, spoke up. "Earth's government would support this. After everything that happened, humanity's reputation has changed in galactic politics. We're seen as principled, willing to fight for others. This kind of program would strengthen that position. Plus, Sarah added with a grin, I'm tired of my boring research job. I want in. Someone needs to handle the science side. Make sure we're actually helping these species correctly. Jake looked at the babies playing. Hope noticed his attention and ran over, climbing up his leg to perch on his shoulder. The small dragon nuzzled his cheek, purring contentedly. Through their empathic connection, Jake felt the baby's happiness, its sense of belonging, its love. Yeah, Jake said quietly. Yeah, I'm in. Let's do this. The next 6 months blurred together in a whirlwind of construction and planning. The gas station was expanded, transformed. The old pumps remained, kept as a memorial to where it all began. Behind them, new buildings rose. Medical facilities designed for multiple species. Living quarters. Research laboratories. Landing pads for ships. Underground chambers for those who needed darkness or specific atmospheric conditions. Species from across the galaxy contributed. The technology was cutting edge, blending the best of 100 worlds. But the heart of it remained human, remained the simple idea that everyone deserved help when they needed it. Jake served as the Director of Protection Services, using his military experience to ensure the facility's security. But this time he wasn't fighting. He was building walls to keep people safe, not to keep enemies out. Sarah led the research division, assembling a team of xenobiologists and medical specialists who shared her ethics. Koresh became the face of the program, traveling to council worlds, recruiting partners, telling the story of 3 babies who survived because one person chose compassion over fear. Her speeches inspired donations and support from unexpected sources. The program was named in honor of the murdered babies, those who never got to live. Their memory would protect others. The first refugees arrived within weeks. A family fleeing persecution for their religious beliefs, an individual whose genetic mutation made them a target in their home society, children orphaned by war. Each one found safety at the facility. Each one found humans and other species willing to help. Jake met them all at the landing pads, remembered their names, learned their stories. At night, when the facility was quiet, he would walk to the original pumps and look up at the stars. Sometimes Koresh joined him, the two of them standing in comfortable silence. Do you regret it? Koresh asked one night. Your quiet life is gone forever. You are famous now across many worlds. Privacy is difficult. Jake considered the question. He thought about the dozens of refugees sleeping safely in the facility. He thought about Hope and the other babies who had grown larger and more confident, who played with refugee children from 6 different species. He thought about the work, hard and never-ending but meaningful. I thought I wanted quiet, Jake said. After the wars, after losing my family, I thought I wanted to hide from the galaxy. Turns out I was wrong. I didn't want quiet. I wanted purpose. You gave me that. You gave yourself that, Koresh corrected. When you chose to help. When you chose to stand. Many would not have made that choice. Then many are wrong, Jake said simply. More ships arrived as they talked. A scientific delegation bringing samples of a plant species facing extinction. A transport full of medical supplies donated by an Earth corporation. The facility had become something remarkable. A place where species came together not in conflict but in cooperation. Hope emerged from the facility, now large enough to carry a small person, though still young. The dragon bounded to Jake and nuzzled him affectionately. Through their bond, Jake felt the happiness radiating from his friend. The baby had never known fear anymore, never known hunger or danger. That alone made everything worth it. Colonel Wright visited regularly, bringing news from Earth's government and occasionally helping with security training. You've started something here, he told Jake during one visit. Other facilities are opening, inspired by this place. Other species are creating refuge programs. You've changed the conversation, changed what people think is possible. It wasn't me, Jake said. It was all of us. One person helping another. That's all it ever is, but Wright shook his head. You were first. When everyone else would have called authorities, would have stayed safe, you walked out to that dragon and offered help. First matters. It gives others courage. On the anniversary of that first night, they held a ceremony. Representatives from 50 species attended. Speeches were made about courage and compassion, about standing against injustice, about building instead of destroying. Jake stood at the back, uncomfortable with attention, wanting to let others shine. Koresh found him hiding near the original pumps. You should be on stage, she said. Stage is for people better with words, Jake replied. I'm just a guy who helped someone who needed it. You are more than that. You are a friend. A partner, family, Jake smiled. The word family had new meaning.